Hey everybody, Mrs. Calhoun here. I'm just going to go over an intro to Photoshop and why it's really good to just get used to Photoshop and digital tools if you're interested in um, any kind of visual arts career or work in the future. Like most design and illustration these days is done digitally. Definitely design. Um, I'm just going to show you. I have a YouTube channel or playlist full of digital illustration tutorials. And if you're interested in learning more on your own, there are so many resources on YouTube about Photoshop, Illustrator, all kinds of other tools like iPad Procreate. I have like 73 videos right now on here. And I'll put a link to that on our Google Classroom. But I'm going to show you our first sort of exercise to get you warmed up on Photoshop today. Um, but I wanted to just show you, like, digital tools have gotten so powerful lately that there are a lot of artists out there who are doing work, um, and it's hard to even tell that it's digital, at least at first glance. So this is this I want to show you how you can use it in kind of traditional ways. Like I kind of use like drawing with a tablet, almost like I paint. I use the same process, and there's no like a bad a bad drawing or painting will be bad on Photoshop or Illustrator. Like you can't make it good just with the tools. Like you have to know composition really well and kind of techniques that you would use by hand also digitally. So a good work of art digitally, it requires the same kind of skills that you use with physical art. So I'll show you the layers on here. The nice thing about working digitally is that it is faster because it takes almost no time to set it up. You can easily, delete mistakes. Um, and let's see, I'm just going to show you kind of the layers that I use. This is a drawing I created, or kind of like a painting that I created of my niece. The layers here are, I started with just almost like just a base color. I'm going to take off all the layers. You can see over on the left hand or the bottom right hand corner what happens when I remove the layer. So I wanted to have a plain just color underneath, a cool color to complement the predominantly warm colors of the composition. Then I quickly sketched it out, and you can see it when I press on the Z key and I move my stylus to the right, it zooms in. I move to the left, it zooms out while I'm holding down the Z key. So we're going to use a lot of keyboard shortcuts. You can see I just did a quick, very rough sketch to see where everything was, especially my niece. I wanted to get her most clearly in there. Then I blocked in you can see kind of roughly, if I remove that background, you can see it's a little bit transparent because I wanted the blue to show through on the shadows. When I click the little eye icon on the lower right, you can really see it. So I wanted that blue, and then it would really make the yellow pop, or kind of a complementary color scheme. You can see when I zoom in, it's sort of pastel-like. If you zoom in a lot, this is at 66%. You can see the different types of brushes I used. I like the pastel sort of a look with Photoshop. It works really well for that. And so, yeah, I just kind of quickly put in all of these all the different shapes. And then I had some objects I wanted to be able to move around. So I have those on a separate layer too. So I have this broom. I wasn't sure where I really wanted it to go. So it's on its own layer. So if I click on broom and I have my direct selection tool, I can move it around. Unfortunately, I made a mistake and I also put some other stuff on that layer. So I don't really want to move it. Anyway, there it is. And then my focal point, my niece, I have her here. Let me zoom out a little bit. You can see I can move her a little bit if I want to. But unfortunately, again, I accidentally drew some other things on that layer, so I'd have to delete those if I really moved her. And then I put a kind of a vignette filter on top of that. So that's kind of how you just create layers for a drawing, like a pastel looking drawing. Very simply. It's pretty intuitive. It's not very difficult. So today I want you to get used to brushes, and I'm going to have you create a new document. Let's see, let's go up to File, New, when you are ready to start, and you can rewatch this video as many times as you need to. Let's just call it Mini Brush Test. You can put your name on your own. Mini Brush Test. I would like it to be a little bit of a larger file, so I'm going to say 9 by 12, and RGB colors for viewing on a screen, so we'll leave it at that. Let's keep the resolution at 300. Now I'm going to say create. Okay, we've got this new file. I'm going to close that other one. I don't want to save the changes. New file, and now you've got it. The first thing you're going to do is make a new layer down here on the bottom right. Click that. So you see layer 2. What we're going to do is create small like swatches, like little images within the image to test brushes in a very systematic way, so you can remember and you have recordings of it. So to do that, and it's always a good practice to label your layers. So I'm going to layer 1, clicking on it, my stylus, double clicking, and I'm going to call it trees or tree branches. Anyway, we'll just call it trees. It's fine. So zooming in here a little bit, so this fills the screen, but not too big. Now I am going over to the left side, and I'm clicking on this selection tool. Yours might look like a rectangle marquee tool, or yeah, I'm going to make it elliptical. So if you have it on, whatever you have it on, if you hold it down, you'll see this pop-up menu, and you can choose one of them. I want elliptical, so choose that for this particular test. And then to constrain the proportions to be a circle, you have to hold down the Shift key, but I'll show you. If you don't hold down the Shift key, you can change the dimensions of this, but if you hold down the Shift key, it always keeps it a circle, perfect circle, and I want that. Now everything that I draw will be within this selection, and you know when you're drawing like something really graphic, sometimes it's nice to have it's kind of a selection like this, like a shape. If you're doing a big painting, you probably won't do that as much, but for now we're using this. Now I'm going down to my brush tool over here on the left side. Oh, and the other thing I want to show you, your screen might not look like this. If we want it to be on painting, so choosing a workspace over in the upper right, I have painting checked. That's going to show me swatches and brushes by default. If you did like essentials, it would look a little different. Not as many things to show. I want you to have it on painting so you can get to all the drawing tools easily. Okay, now at the top, you need to have the pressure sensitivity on. That's up here. That is very important for most things. And sometimes you'll want the opacity on too. For this, pressure. Okay, keep the pressure on. Now I'm going to pick a color. I'm just going to do black. And I am looking at my your brushes, general brushes. There's not a huge selection here, and they're all very good because they've discovered what is best and what works, and these are just a good start for you. You can do a lot with them. Sometimes I make up my own brushes or I find ones online, but mostly I've even bought brushes before, but mostly I use these ones. So I'm going to go to Kyle's Drawing Box. Ultimate or Happy HB. This is just going to be like a pencil. Pencil's good for small things, and let's see how it looks. I'm going to zoom in with my Z key. Z, go to the right over the thing you want to zoom in on. So now, let's see here. I've got what looks like sort of a black pencil. It's a little. You can see that it's a little bit textured. If I zoom in some more, you can really see that texture. This is maybe thinner than I want, so I'm going to increase the size, especially for the trunks of the trees. Very thick, very dark pencil. When I'm not pressing as hard, you can see the line gets thinner. And kind of very chalky looking even too, a little, it's kind of irregular. Okay, so make a few branches like this on your trees. You can make a few trees, make it like a sort of a forest. This and play around with that. Maybe let's try even, we want to be consistent with our brushes, but let's just try the charcoal pencil, see how that is. Charcoal pencil is going to be a little bit rougher. I'll make it bigger so we can get a sense for the texture. Try changing the size. This is also essential. On your stylus, you'll see these buttons. If you click one of them, this little dialog box should pop up, and this controls the size. You're going to do this a lot, so get used to it. Try some different sizes. I'm going to do 25 pixels and see. When I press harder, it's going to be thicker than 25 pixels. Oh, I need to I changed brushes. I need to reselect up here on the top pen pressure, so it gets thicker when I press harder a little bit. Every brush has its own presets, and you can change those. We might get a little more into that later, but you can change that with things like scattering, shape dynamics. You can kind of see the changes on the screen when I do this. What happens? Texture changes it. I want the texture. I like the texture. So make that go away. So yeah, just play with these and make a little scene of some trees and notice what's happening with your brushes. Try different brushes on this one. This is not to have a really pretty end result. It's more just to see what happens when you try the different brushes. So I'm even going to try this chunky charcoal and see what happens. Ooh, yeah, that's really nice and thick. Would be great for some certain things. Make it smaller. I can use it for my ooh, that's nice, and that's really, I haven't used this one before. That's got a great charcoal texture to it. So definitely try this. You can even get sort of a highlight side and a shadow side. And when I don't press very hard on this one, it's much more kind of gritty and grainy looking, just like real charcoal. That's really nice. Okay, so don't deselect this yet. Now what I want you to do is create a new layer like this, and you'll see it down here, just says layer 1. We're going to add a background color. You can do this with a fill or with a brush. It'll be looking more natural if you use a brush and more graphic if you do it with a fill. But I'm just going to say down here, I'm going to call it tree background. Tree background. Okay. Now I've got a blue color, and I'm going to do a really big brush here. Let's do blue up here. Big brush, really big, not that big. Whew. Okay, maybe like this. Now what, oh, see, now look what happens. I'm covering this up. I'm still working within the selection tool, but obviously we don't really want to cover up our trees. So think about for a second what you can do about that. What can we do so it doesn't cover the trees? I will show you. Over here on the right side, we need to drag this layer underneath the trees layer, and boom, now we can see it. So you can even blend your colors a little bit. Maybe I want to have some kind of a purplish color here. Those brushes don't really blend, so let's try the pastel one and see what happens. Pastel brush is more blendy. It's going to blend these colors together a bit. Fun. I want to make this bigger. The default setting of that went back to smaller, I think. And I might even try pressure, change the size a little bit. Okay, now we have kind of this almost a sunset look. You can just play with that. And let's make one more layer. I'm just going to leave it with some white spaces. One more layer here. Call this flat fill. So you understand how to use the paint bucket tool. So here we are on the left side, click paint bucket tool, and let's do like a orangey color. It's going to be kind of weird. Okay, that changed everything. Now, if we move this below that one, there it is. You can kind of see it through. It doesn't really look great, but now you can understand how you can create these different fills and layers, and then you can even blend with the layer styles. And that comes to be important more later, but I can at least give you a preview of it. So if I go up to this little dialog box here on the layer menu, I can change. Whoa, that's weird. I can change, and it's going to change the way these layers interact with each other. So I'm just using the arrow key down. I'm trying darker color. That's lighten, screen, color dodge. It can get a little gimmicky, but sometimes there are times where you want that. And I like that soft light one. So I'm just going to stick with that. Okay, so after you have that swatch, the next thing you need to do is create a text box down here on there's a T. Click on it. Well, just leave it on that. And you're going to, we'll zoom out a little bit so you can see make sure you see everything. Create this drag, click and drag. It's just like the rectangular marquee tool that I showed you, but it's going to make text on the inside. So if you do that, you'll see, okay, that's really big. So I go up at the top and I'm going to change it to like maybe 18 point. Let's see how big that is. The weird font. Okay, and it's kind of a pretty font, but I don't want it quite like that. I want black or dark gray or something. So change the color up here at the top. This is like your text area. And let's do just kind of a standard. You can do whatever font you want actually, but I'm just going to do like a kind of a plain font. I always like to use, I have too many fonts. It's ridiculous. Josephine, like this one. Let's see here. Okay, that's a decent size. I can change, I can do whatever I want with the fonts up here. I'm going to do a bold one. Now I'm saying these are the notes. So put notes, tested pencil and charcoal brushes. You'll want to put whatever you did. Used pen pressure. Created 3 layers. Something like that. So whatever you did, you need to put it in these notes. So this is a way you're learning so many different things at once, and hopefully it's in as stress-free as possible way, in a fun way, learning how to use text. That is essential for so many things. Learning how to manipulate the layers, create layers and change the order. Learning how to test different brushes, learning about selection tools, learning about the paint bucket tool, all these different things. So that's your first test here. Oh, and this is way too spaced. If I want to change just more of the text and I need more options, I go up to Window. This is all these different dialog boxes. I'm going to go to character. Here we have it. It's just going to pop out over here. I don't want my spacing of rows to be so wide, so I'll just change it to 18. Okay, there we are with that. Put that away. I'm deselecting things. So that's a start. That's probably enough for right now. Next thing, very important, we're going to go up to File, Save As. This is a big, very important thing to remember. You'll want to save these things in your own folder on the computer that you're assigned. And whenever you have a working file or a file that you plan to come back to, you need to keep it as this default Photoshop.psd. So I'm calling this mini brush test, and I'm saving it. But when you submit anything to me on Google Classroom, or anytime you're sharing a final file, you always need to save another copy. So go to Save As again, So I want you to have 2 copies of this, and you're only going to submit the JPEG. So you've got this file name. Keep the same file name, but go to Save As Type JPEG. So it's going to save it as a flat file with no layers. It can't really be edited in the same way, and it will be a much smaller smaller file size, which is important because you don't want huge layered files when you're sending them places. Think of this as like your final, like copy that you're sending off to people. So I'm going to save that. It's going to bring up this options. I say leave it at this 11 quality. For web viewing, if you were making a website and you wanted to have like a lot of images that were quick to load, you might do a lower file, like quality 8, but let's just 10 or 11 is fine. So then, okay. All right, now I have 2 files. The one that's going to be saved open is still my layered file, my PSD file, but you have one out there that is a final kind of a file. Okay, this is too big of a, I actually forgot something. This is just too big of a document, so you can change the dimensions of it. Let me zoom out so I can see the whole thing, and I will crop it. This is the crop tool over on the left. Get the dimensions you want and then double click. Okay, that's great. Now actually we better save it as the JPEG again. This is good. Just you're seeing this thing twice. Okay, save it. Good. It already exists. Do I want to replace it? Yes, because all I did was crop it to the size I wanted. So say yes. Okay. All right. I think that is probably enough for us for today.